Okay, Shalom Chavra, good evening. We are going to start Bez Hashem from the Gemara Daf Gimel Amar Aleph, the Mishnah, the first Mishnah. We'll see how far we get to Bez Hashem. Fine. So we made two people are made that Reuven divorced his wife and he did not pay ksuba. So you can't say that he's mechuyev to pay the whole 200 zuz, because at some point he may be mechayev to her, either him personally or his estate, maybe mechayev to him, maybe mechayev to her to pay the ksuba. So it's not a vadai loss, so we can't make them pay that. So the Mishnah explains how we're going to figure out the actualized loss. Again, there's no actual loss; he doesn't have to pay the ksuba because they found that to be Eidim Zayman. But what is the attempted loss? In other words, even in their Havamina, they weren't looking to do absolute damage, because at some point he may have had to pay the ksuba anyway. So then there's no actual damage. So Aimdim Kama Adam Roitzalitim Ksubasa Shalzu. How much would he give for this ksuba? That he would get the rights. How much would someone pay for the rights to this ksuba? That if she gets divorced, or her husband dies, the purchaser of this get option would get the right, would get the ksuba, and if she dies, then your shamana, she would lose, and this guy would lose out. So in other words, how much would someone from the shuk? How much would a third party, or how much is the market value of this option on the get be worth? So the Gemara is going to explain exactly how we do that, but just to understand the idea, the get is for 200 zuz. No one's going to pay obviously 200 zuz to be able to collect 200 zuz. There's no market. The market is not going to pay that. The market is going to pay a percentage of the get. So people buy debt all the time, right? That's a whole market of buying debt. So this is an example of buying debt where you may get the money if the guy dies or if she gets divorced, and if the woman dies, you lose that right because you only bought the rights of the ksuba, which is only collectible if the woman is still around at the time, if the woman is still alive at the time that the marriage ends. So and how do we evaluate? In other words, which hana are we using to evaluate? There's a three machlekes, and and it gets a little nuanced here. The Baal's right. So how much would someone pay for the Baal's right in the shtar? So if the Baal said, I'm married, I have a ksuba for my wife for 200 zuz, how much would you pay me for this, that if I divorce her, or if I die, then you don't get anything, and if she dies, then you give the whole thing, right? How much is the value to the husband's? What is the husband's holding? The woman's holdings, which is the woman's holdings, and we're going to see exactly what that means. The Rashi explains that the woman's holdings over here means that it's the woman's holdings. It's the full amount minus the woman's holdings. So if the whole shtar is 200 zuz, then this guy would have paid the woman this value of what the woman can sell her rights in the shtar. Presumably, the Baal would pay himself not to have to pay the shtar at some point. So because that's not part of the cheshbon damage, that comes off the top. So 200 zuz minus the woman's interest in the shtar, the woman's sellable interest in the shtar. That would be the full thing according to Rav Nassan. Again, Rav Chizah says it's the full thing. It's the husband's sellable interest in the shtar. Rav Nassan Ba'arshia says it's the woman's. It's the full 200 minus the woman's sellable interest in the shtar. And Rav Papa is Maisif Be'isha like Rav Nassan, but Ubiksubasa and not any other of the cheshbainis of divorce, the nechse milug, the blois, all the other things that she gets, or any other payments that would have had to go from the husband to the wife, is not part of this entire. And from what I understand, it's because they said biksubasa. In other words, they could say, "Oh, we didn't know about any other transfers. We were just trying to make the guy pay the ksuba. We weren't trying to make anything else happen. So we have that argument throughout Shas, throughout the Gemara as well, that they could say we weren't trying to do this, even though it's pretty apparent that that's going to happen. We have to see how it's applied later on. So that is the cheshbon of that's a machlekes. Rashi goes through the svaros of why each one. It's a little darkest that we're not going to go into now. So there may not only on the amount of the loan, but also on the terms of the loan. They say it's 1,000 zuz that's due in 30 days. And the Nidan says, I had 10 years on the loan. So, and they come to be Eidim Zayman, so therefore what? Really, the guy was right, they had 10 years. So what were they trying to do? You can't say they have to pay $1,000, because they weren't trying to be today $1,000 from the guy. Because this guy would have to pay $1,000 anyway at some point. The question is, would he have to pay it in 30 days or 10 years? So we have to see, what is the time value of money from 30 days, between 30 days and 10 years? And obviously that's called ribis, and we're not allowed to pay that in an ordinary case, but because here, this is what this is what the damage is done, this is what the Eidim Zayman have to pay. That essentially what someone would pay for interest on money. It could be that that's not the cheshbon. The cheshbon is not the ribis, because it could be it's much more, right? Someone's only willing to pay for the ribis because they believe the time value of money is much greater. You're not going to pay 3% a year to make 3% a year. So obviously, so the time value of money is l'chayra greater than what the normal interest rate is l'chayra. But either way, again, this is not to promote interest. This is just to say this is how we evaluate a time value of money, and that is what the cost that the Eidim did. Again, the $1,000 is not a cost because he would have to pay that back anyway. So that's the time value of money. That's what they have to pay. So we're going to have a series of members from Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel and Rav, and it's going to start off very close to home and slowly end up all over Shas. Someone lends his friend money for 10 years. Shemitah is Meshamet. Now, what's the question? Why would Shemitah not be Meshamet? Because you might think the pasuk that prevents us from collecting is lo yigais. That's the pasuk says lo yigais as kikar Shemitah Lashem. It says, "Dva shmita shamait kol ba masay yadai asher yasa bereu lo yigais esreu ve'es achav kikar shmita Hashem." So I might think, because now it's not collectible anyway. At the time shmita hits, I might think that lo yigais is an integral part of the shmita. If it has to be a loan that's susceptible to yigais, this is not a yigaisable loan because it's not due yet. So shmita maybe only kicks loans that are collectible. Now this is not collectible because it's not due for another few years. So that's like in the guys, or maybe again, I might think that because now it's not considered laigais, and that's a chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. That even though right now it's not collectible because it's going to become collectible, Shemitah still kicks that loan. Must have Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana is going to ask. Rav Kahana ask on Shmuel, on Rav Yehuda, on Shmuel. From our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that I'm kama adam right to retain value elef zuz b'yad bein nitin mekan v'adam yayim or bein nitin mekan v'adas hashanim. The whole Mishnah said that what's the evaluation? How do we evaluate the damages? The attempted damages from the Eidim Zayman to the Nidain is how it's the time value of money, right? That's what we said in the Mishnah. But if you're going to tell me that this loan, that Shemitah, according to Yehuda Mishmuel, if you're going to tell me that a 10-year loan gets kicked by Shemitah, then he essentially what he wanted to do, it would have been off. The whole thing would have been off. And now you made him pay the loan. If the original loan was made for 10 years, which means comes whatever amount of years into it, because we don't know if it was which year in Shemitah he did it, but let's say he started in year 1, 7 years into the loan, 6 years into the loan, and at the end of the 6 years, the deal's gone. The loan is gone. The Eidim Zayman come and say it was due after 1 month. So they were machayed the whole loan. he should have had to pay the attempted damages for the full $1,000. Amarava, Hachma, Eskina, our Mishnah is talking about the Malva al Mashkin, Umaiser, Shtoris Bezdin. And these two cases, if you take a mashkin or you, according to Rashi, your principal, according to Taisa, something else. But in these two cases, the Shemitah does not come into play. So our Mishnah is talking about where this would not have been a Shemitah, would not have been a loan that was kicked by Shemitah. So you weren't being mechayev the whole loan because the loan was going to be mechayev anyway. The Tanan, there's another drush of how there's another way of there's another girsa of how this whole back and forth went down, and we're going to say as follows: the even though it's going to become leigais right now, as Shemitah comes in, there is no yigais over here. It's not yigaisable. And therefore, Shemitah doesn't come into effect. I'm going to bring you a raya because our Mishnah says, "I'm the kama adam writes litain b'yei elav zuz b'yad bein litain mekam ba'ad lam yom bein litain mekam ba'ad esashanim ve'i amrit shviyas misham tasei kulinami b'osh lumei." And if you're going to come tell me again the same story, just punk for God. Now it's a raya to Shmuel because Shmuel said that it is misham, it is not mishamet. So you see that it would have taken place anyway, and that's why they don't have to pay the full 1,000, only the time value of money. Amarava, Rav is now, instead of answering the kasha, he's just being doich the raya. It's not mishamit. So again, the idea is that from our mission, we'd have a raya or a kasha to Shmuel's memra of whether because we only down the time value of money and not the actual loan, it would either be a kasha if you say that it is mishamet, or it would be a raya if it's not mishamet. And Rava answers both ways. He is the matchet. Another member of Rabbi Shmuel. I'm the tishmitani shviyas mishum tasei. So if someone gives his friend a loan and says, "I'm giving you this loan, I'm manas that we do not have shviyas," does not come into play over here. So he says, so it's Tanai Batal, it's Masa Mashkas B'Torah, Ma'isa Kai B'Tanai Batal. So all I'm left with, I have a loan, and my Tanai is Batal because it's going against what the Torah said. The Torah said there is Shemitah, and this guy said there's no Shemitah, so we're going to go with the Torah on this. So Leima Kasav right now again. This is only the Gabe Mammon. So we're going to say the Shmuel holds that it's that even if you hold that Masa Mashkas B'Torah by Mammon works, but by anything else it doesn't work. The only tzad to say that Masa Mashkas B'Torah works is by Mammon. Leima Kasav Shmuel Masa Mashkas B'Torah V'chol Mashkas B'Torah Tanai Batal. Right, that's what you want to say. That's the Shita Shmuel. Again, Shmuel says that if I say that I'm giving you money, Almanas, that we should not have Shemitah come into play over here. It doesn't work, and the loan is still kicked by Shemitah. We learned another member. If I'm making a deal with you, I'm telling you right now, I'm overcharging you. I don't want to hear about this later. We're in Yankee Stadium. I'm charging you $11 for a can of Coke. Okay, I don't want to hear. Don't come later. You saw it on eBay for less. This is the price I'm giving you. You're not going to come to me with I know. So we see the Shmuel says beferish that you can have Ana later. You can't have Ana later, which shows that Shmuel says Mashkas B'Torah Tanai Kayim. It's Ma'ala Amar Rav Anan the deep Mefarshi Azay. If you say you don't have the right to collect Aina from me, which means you are being mavatal your rights to Taina Aina. If you want to say that the halachas of Aina do not apply to our transaction, there is Aina, because you cannot be mavatal a mitzvah in the Torah. You cannot be mavatal a parsha in the Torah. You can ask me to waive my rights within this transaction, and because it's mominous, I have that right to waive my rights. If it was ishus or any other transaction, then you would not have that right. I would not have the right to be meichel my the structure of my side of the deal in any other transaction. But in a monistic issue, I have a right to waive my right to Aina. So now we go back to the halacha about Shemitah. The way he said that Shemitah should not be shoylet over here. If you said if it should not, if he said it should not be on me, in other words, I should not have Shemitah on this case. This case, I should not have. You should not come to me with Tainus of Shemitah. Then it works. But the lashon that we had before, oh, hold on. Ain't Shvius Mishum Tasei. It's the same exact lashon. Shvius. So he learns, say, because the lashon is a little different. And over here he's saying, he's learning that member of Shmuel dropped different. And he's saying, I think that the diak is on the base. You shouldn't have. Yeah, if you say that I should not have it, the diak of the word, I guess, of the letter base over here is that you should. It's like you should not be able to collect from me from. You should not be able to pay me Shemitah. But if you want to just say in general the Shemitah doesn't work, that does nothing. And it's talking meduik in the lashon. That's it's enough for me. And the lashon is that he says when Shmuel says it doesn't work and Shmuel says it does work. Now, just the interesting idea, they talk about why it's not a Makkos Daf, but that's not what we're going to deal with now. If you have all the loan docs, everything signed up, you forgot to put the terms in. So, Stam hava shleishim yom. That's dafka by b'malva b'shtar. Why? The lie of an inish tarcha because of shtar batzim mitlasin yamin. The leiva is the one who bears the cost of putting together the paperwork. So he's not going to spend money to take out a loan, and a week later the guy's going to be tevei from him. So that's in that. So he learned. Rabbi Barakana said that it's dafka by a milva apel where there's a hefset to the leiva. But milva apel, I don't have the svara of I wouldn't have been matriach to write a shtar for less than 30 days. So you don't have the svara. So you could be if you don't put in terms, it's not guaranteed 30 days, and they can come to you the next day and ask you for the money back. Amalei Rav Chavivi is referring to Rav Chia. Rav Chia is his uncle, but I think his uncle from two different ways. I think it's his father. I think it's his father's mother and his mother's. I think it's his father's brother and his mother's brother. I think that's the part of here. I could be mixing up with the different Damaira, but they're not related, obviously, his father and his mother, because that would be a shtickle mamzer situation. But I'm pretty sure he is Rav's uncle from two sides. I'm pretty sure. So he said that Rav Chia said it's stam shloshim yom. Tanina mehachi hamav es stam en v'shay l'toiv v'pachitz m'shloshim yom. Regardless whether it's al peh, whether it's v'shtar, whether it's v'shtar, whether it's al peh, you still have automatic 30 days. Amalei Shmuel l'Rav Masna like taste of akrecha. Don't sit down. Adam l'hashmaitim. How do you know this halacha that stam hava is shloshim yom? The Amar Rabbana Hamav Chaver Stam Ein Rashay L'Tava B'Chachas M'Nav Yain Echem B'Shav Echem B'Apa. How do you know this halacha? Where do you know from? Where's the Raya in the Torah? Amalei T'chsiv Kar V'Shnas Hashiva Shnas Hashmita. That's the pasuk says. And the pasuk says in regards to the people telling people that they should not look at the calendar and see Shemitah's coming and stop lending their friends money. So it's saying that watch the 7th year is coming, which is the year of Shemitah. But the don't. Everyone knows that the 7th year is Shemitah. So why do I have to? What's the double lashon? Ella matan Shemitah loimelach yesh Shemitah achara shehu shikazu. There's another type of shmita that's like this. That there's an idea, a time frame of shmita that has shmita-like tendencies of, not tendencies, characteristics, where there's a isser to collect, and that is referring to the first 30 days of the loan. Now, how do we see that over here we're talking about, it says shnas hashmita. So where do we see that a year? How do you get to 30 days? That a year, no, there's a year and a month. It already counts like 2 years. And this is the gabe. I'm not sure it's halacha. This is the gabe. I think that it's the gabe maisvis. But I can't. I'm not sure. There's a certain. So I'm not sure what sugya is. It's in Rosh Hashanah. I'm not sure what it's talking about. Where we count a month into the next year as a year. If someone opens, you have a cloth, you have a big shmata cloth, and you open up the middle, so you have a beged. So what happens? You chayiv chatas. Obviously, if you do b'shagig, you chayiv chatas. Maskala Rav Kana v'chima bein zeh. What's in between this opening of a barrel? The barrel is not attached. The barrel was once separate from the top, and now even if you waxed in the top and you smeared it up good, it's essentially two separate pieces that you can now separate, and that's mutter on Shabbos. How exactly you learn the sukkah affects a lot of the halachas about opening up caps in Shabbos, but not for us. Not for now. So again, the cloth is all one piece. After you sew it, becomes one piece, and now you're opening up a Pesach, and that's makar patish. It's masakamara. That's issa deraisa. You chayav chatas if it's b'shoigeg, and skila if you do the nezed with hasrav. I'm going to read them Rav. Okay, so this is going to need a little bit of a hakdama, and Bez Hashem will do it because it's a little bit of it's mikvahis, which is not everyone's favorite sugya. The halacha is that a mikvah, we all know, is 40 sa. Now, after a mikvah has 40 sa of rainwater, which you know that it needs, it can't turn on your faucet and fill up a mikvah. It needs to be rainwater. I think legabe certain mikvahs, I don't think mikvah isha you could use ice, but for certain mikvahs you're allowed to use melted ice. Side note. But we're talking about over here a mikvah that was not yet finished, which means not that they didn't finish collecting all the money and putting up tiles, but that the 40 sa was not completed. So we have, let's say, 39 sa. We're missing 1 sa, at least one, whatever. We're missing. We're short 40. We don't have the whole 40. And now all of a sudden, someone adds in some other mixture. So if a mikvah gets filled up 40, and then you could add in whatever you want afterwards, as long as you don't completely dilute and if you make it look like something completely different, then it's a problem. But even if you add in as much mayim shuvim as possible, I think I don't know if there's a share, but you could basically once you have 40 sa, you could add a bunch of water into it. But if it's missing a drop of water, if it doesn't have the full 40, then if you add in 3 lugim of mayim shuvim, then it makes the whole thing possible. You have to drain it and start from scratch. So with that, we will, as Hashem, try to learn the next sugya. If I have 3 lugin of mayim shuvim and 1 quart of, however much it is, it's not a lot, of wine fell into that 3 lugim. So I have a full 3 lugim, which passes a mikvah. That's not unfinished mikvah, right? 3 lugim of mayim shuvim that passes a unfinished mikvah. And after the 3 lugim, a drop of wine fell in, but it's enough wine to make it look like wine. And now this cocktail of 3 lugim of mayim shuvim and 1 drop of wine, mikvah, fell into a mikvah loy paslua. It does not pass the mikvah because it has the shame of yayin, and yayin does not pass the mikvah. Now I don't think it's oila to the mikvah, so I still need 3 lugim. I still need to be mashlim the rest of the. If no, it's only short 3 lugim from the 40. I still do not have the 40. I don't believe that the yayin is oila, but it doesn't pass the whole mikvah. Our sugya here is not passing. Is not being oila. It's about passing. So let's stick with that. Rav Kahana asks, what's in between this case of the wine falling into the quart of yayin falling into the 3 lugim of water to this following case of the Mishnah of colored water? Rav Yosi Aditanan, Rav Yosi Amar, meitzava, colored water placed in the mikveh b'shayis lugim. If we have 3 lugim of colored water of mayim shuvim, then it passes the mikvah. So what Rav Kana's kash is? What's the nafka between this Mishnah and the three lugim of yayin? And we answer very simply. Amalei Rava Hasa Maya the Tzava Mikri. Your own question really answers it because you said when you quoted me the case, you said May Tzava colored water. It's color. It's still considered water. It happens to be colored, so it looks funny. Maybe it even looks like wine. Maybe it looks like something else. But it's considered colored water. And the other case, the one that Rav is talking about, Hacha Chama Maziga Mikri. Over here, this is called diluted wine. Now, it's super duper diluted, and you cannot use it for kiddush or for anything other of mitzvahs where I need wine. It's not considered wine in any other aspect in halacha. But regabi mikvah, because it's considered very diluted wine, in other words, wine is that chashiv that as soon as it takes on the color of wine, it's considered diluted wine, and it's because of that it loses its shame mayim and it doesn't pass on the mikvah. Okay, we're going to stay in the same sugya for a little bit, and Bez Hashem we'll get through this. Vatani Yom Chia, I redo as a mikvah. But I redo as a mikvah. Rav Chia says that you are ma'avid the mikvah in the case of Rav Amar Rava like Kasha. Yeah, in the case of Rav of Shleishis Lugim Shenaflu L'Seichen Kortav Sheyayinu Mara Kamar Yaim Naflu Mikvah, Rav Chia himself holds that it is a problem, and you are moed the mikvah because you have to drain it and start from scratch. Amar Rava Lekasha Harav Yechanan Ben Nuri Harabanan. Rabbi Yechanan Ben Nuri Rav holds like Yechanan Ben Nuri, and Rav Chia holds like Rabbanan. The Tanan Shleishis Lugim Mayim. So we have another mission. Three lugim of water. Again, Mayim Shuvim. Chaser kortav that's missing a kortav, so it's not a full three, and that's a huge piece of the air because 3 lugim less a kortav is not paisel anything. Shenafel l'seichen kortav yayin umareu kamaris yayin kamar yayin v'nafel mikvah loy paslu. Now that's obvious because it doesn't have the shear of wine and it looks like wine, so there's no tzad to say this is possible. V'chein gimel lugim mayim chaser kortav shenafel l'seichen kortav chalav umarein kamar yayin. Mayim v'naflu mikvah loy paslu. And in other words, again, the chiddush over here, according to Tanakama, is that let's just say the case quickly, and then we'll say the chiddush. And the same idea is that if we have 3 lugim of water minus a drop, and chalav falls in, and chalav is white, so it's not going to change the appearance of this 3 lugim. And after the kortav of chalav, which is mashlim, the 3 lugim, it now looks like 3 lugim of water. In that case, it's also not. So that's the chiddush, right? The chiddush is that even though the mara is like mayim, because I did not have a full 3 lugim of mayim shuvim, it's not paisel. Everything goes according to the mara. Now, if he's saying that hakol haylech achar amara, he's saying he's arguing on the ratio. He's saying that even if I don't have it, it's not chaser kortav, it wouldn't be paisel. He's arguing on the reisha on a subtext because the Mishnah does not discuss the case that he's really arguing on. The Mishnah is discussing the case according to the way we're learning right now. There's another way to learn, but the Gemara is going to discuss another way later. But in the Havim, right now where we are, Rabbi Yochanan is saying Hakol Helach Amar. So I'm arguing with Tanakama because the Tanakama says only if it's chaser kortav, then the yayin makes the water makes the mayim she'uvim not possible, which we could be mendayik from the lashon of the Tanakama that had I already had 3 lugim of water and a kortav of yayin came in, it wouldn't help me. So Rabbi Yochanan is arguing on that case that the Chazal that the Rabbanan didn't say. Again, the Rabbanan are saying a case where I never had a share of 3 lugim and I don't have a mara of mayim. So they say in that case we don't pass on the mikvah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is arguing on the case that they didn't say, which is that if a kortav of mayim kortav of yayin falls into shleishis lugim, 3 complete lugim of mayim shuvim, it's still not possible because it goes after the mara. The Chari is arguing on the sefer also, according to this lashon. He's arguing on the Reish on the Sefer also. Yeah, the Chayr is arguing on both, and Rav would hold like this case because the case that the case that is not said in the Mishnah is Rav's case because the Mishnah says that it's chaser and Rav says that it's not chaser, and Rabbi Yochanan is arguing Tanakama, which means he's arguing on that he agrees with Rav. Okay. This whole Mishnah is Rav Papa had two different gears. We have to understand what's going on over here. Rav Papa, Rav Papa, Rav Tani Chasek Korta Bereisha. Was he with the Rav Tani Chasek Korta Bereisha? Avashosh is looking at the Tanakama apostle. V'asar Yochanan Lemeimer Hakol Halach Achar Hamara. Did Rav learn that the Mishnah is saying that it's Chasek Korta, like we have Agirsa, right? But the Tanakama would passel these if it was three complete, which is what we said before. That diak from the Tanakama. Tanakama says his case only when it's chaser korta. But if it was a full shoshes logim, then he wouldn't hold that it's passel. Then he would hold that it's passel. And the asur Rabbi Yochanan Nuri Lemeimer Hakol Halach Achar Amara. Then he's arguing on that case, and we go V'Rav Amak Rabbi Yochanan Nuri. Idilma again. Rav Papa is not sure how to learn this. Idilma Rav Loitani Chasek Korta V'Reisha. Rav says that the Tanakama holds that it's a complete shoshes logim, and again that's Rav Shita. That the Rav had the Shita of that Rav's Gersa was of his own Shita in the Mishnah. He's only arguing on the Sefer to say that even if it's chaser korta of Mayim, now that I'm mashing with the chalav, it's Mara Mayim and it's Shloshis Lugim and it's possible. And Rav says according to everybody, because again, according to Rabbi Yochanan Nuri, he's not arguing on the Reisha in this mahalach of Papa, in this mahalach of the Mishnah. If the Mishnah's first case, if the Tanakam is talking about a case of chaser of not chaser kortov, that's the same case of Rav. And Rav says that it's mutter, that it's not possible, and so does the Tanakama. And Rabbi Yochanan Nuri is not arguing on that case. Rabbi Yochanan Nuri is only arguing in the case of chalav, and he's saying that only in a case where it looks like water, that's when I'm concerned about water. But the ratio, he would agree that even if it's full 3 lugim, as long as I add a drop of wine, and now it looks like yayin, it is not possible. So Rav Papa had this back and forth. Amar Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. I'm sorry, I skipped. Amar Yosef lo sheminanli. Nope. Amar Yochanan ben Nuri. Okay, so Rav Papa mibayile the Rav Pshitale. Rav that answered this question that he's saying that he's going to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. He did not have this conundrum that Rav Papa found himself in, and he said no. He learned the Mishnah was chaser. That means that the Tanakama dafka out in case of chaser, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri came to argue on that, and that's a shita of Rav. Rav Yosef is also Talmud of Rav, and he said, I never heard this Gemara. Abaya, and this is a very common phenomenon in Shas. Rav Yosef he got sick, and he forgot all of his learning. So a lot of times Abaya, who was his Talmud, would remind him of things that he said in Shir. So Rav Yosef said, I never heard this. And Abaya said, no, At Amitla, Niala, you taught it us. So Hachi Amat Niala, and this is what you said. The Rav Loi Tani Chasakortav, he did not learn chaser, so he learned that the Tanakama was his own shita. He was like, so his delivery I call. Rabbi Yochanan has sefer palag, and Rabbi Yochanan is only arguing on the sefer that the milk that gets mixed into water and is mashed the 3 lugim now becomes mayim she'uvim and passes the mikvah. But even Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri would also agree that if the water looks like, if this mixture now looks like wine, then it's kosher, even though it had 3 lugim before the wine was introduced. So okay, that was very. I think probably the most difficult Gemara I had to give over. Baruch Hashem, I think I got it clear. I'm not sure if I gave it over clear. So we're continuing along. We're still handling advice, but we're going to be out of the water soon. Pun intended. If you have a chavis full of water that falls into the Yam HaGadol, Hatayvel sham like also like tefillah. It's not considered a good tefillah. Now we have this is al gzeira that 3 lugim of water is metama because they used to what the people used to do is they used to tayvel. You see it today also, but then it was much more worrisome. People would tayvel and like it was the mikvah was very dirty. They didn't have filtration systems then. The mikvahs were very very dirty, and they would tayvel and then go shower. And Chazal were nervous that if you allow people to do that, people would think that not that the dirty waters are matar, but the shower afterwards was matar, the bath afterwards was matar, and then they would go straight to the bath afterwards and not end up going to the mikvah. So they made it to kind of that if you have 3 lugim of water, it's matami you to probably not a full degree, but let's say it's full yam or whatever it was, and you would not be able to do whatever you needed to do, and you needed so therefore I don't know what level of tumah yet, but we're chayshish. We don't let we say that the tefillah was not also. Now we're going to qualify this b'dafli Yamagadol. It's only in the Yamagadol. It's a very chill river or ocean. The Kali b'kaima. It just stays in one place. Abamara, ba'amaloi. But a river. If I dunk in a barrel of water, it's not going to hang out there. It keeps on running. So it's not. We don't have this there. The same idea. This is not exer. This is just mitzias. You cannot be tayvel in wine, and that would not help you. We're worried that there's 3 lugim of wine in one place. After the person's metama, after the person's tayvel, and it doesn't help him in that same place the kikar falls in. It becomes tame, and talking about right. So it's for the Gemara. My v'chein. What are you being ma'isiv by adding in the bilkala? No, you tell me that everything here is that no, it should be the same chshav, the same way that I became that the gavra did not become tahar, when he was metama. The water, the wine inside. So then, obviously, if a kikar fell inside, it would also be tamei. I think more. I might think that your whole thing of listen, al safek, do it again, but to go be metama truma, I'm not going to do. The answer is no. That's the chiddush of the v'chein. That even though it's a farch shash, it's not just al safik. Just let's just go with the chazaka. We're going to actually be mechadish tumah here, and the kikar is tamei. The kikar tumah is tamei. Let's go a little bit weiter. Let's see if we can. Let's go a little bit weiter. Zakei the Gemara. Zakei the Mishnah. Either the Bishwai Nishachai with a very misayim zivim so zayim Laikin u'mishalim. They get zetz and they have to pay. Now we had this earlier that they don't get malchus at all. The Gemara is going to go through this. Why should I shame him being the day makis maybe the tashlum? The way Rashi understands is that the lav, the pasuk in the Torah that is mechayev him tashlumin is not mechayev him. Is not mechayev makas. The chayev makas he has to get from leisana and assess the bris. And again, we said leisana is not a reason to get makas, but that was yesterday. Today's a new day. And the Messiah zuz he's mechayev out. So it's 2 separate psukim, 2 separate punishments. Furthermore, same idea, but just in another idea. Amevi in the day Makkos. And I liken you do either it's one or the other. If they made on someone that he gets malchus, malchus abam, the nimso zayman, same right? They're found to be in zayman. Like a shmainim, they get 80 malchus. Well, again, it's not 80; it's 79, it's 78. It's right. It's 39 each one. Mishum the loy sana b'reach et shekel or mishum be'asisim loy kasher zamam v'meya v'chalayim ein loika ela arbam. Same machlekes, 2 different inyanim, and the one is going to discuss it. Bishleima. The Rabbanan, it says Kedei V'Shasai. It says Lagabi giving Malchus. You have to punish him. Kedei V'Shasai. Said Mishum V'Sha'achas At Mechayim Yat Mechayim Mishum Shtei Rishuyas. It's Rishai V'Shasai Lashon Yachid. So you don't get your punishment. Ella Ramei my time. How does the mayor get to 2 different punishments? Amar Ula Gamam Mitzvah Shema. Rameir learns that from a Mamatzinu. From Mitzvah Shema, like a Mishalin, which is a special because that's the cost that he gets Touch, and he has to pay the father of the naira $100, 100 zuz, 100 kesef. So too, anytime that there's an idea that you could pay and you get malchus, you do both. But that you can't bring a riot from Matzah Shema is a knas, and you cannot learn now from knas because knas is a chiddush. It's not, doesn't work within the realms of svara. There's no logical connection between the deed and the punishment. So you cannot take that to another level. So if Edim Zayim is knas and Matzah Shema is knas, then it's a good shidduch, and you can learn out Edim Zayim from Matzah Shema. This member by Ula did not say his member of Gam Matzah Shema specifically on the mayor. It could be that he said on another halacha. The Tanya loisasiru men ad biker v'nais men ad biker. So this is the pasuk of Naisa leaving over a carbon pass. It's a lot of time of eating. So every carbon is different. 2 nights and a day, 2 days and a night. But every carbon has its time. Let's say carbon Pesach is only that night, and anything after that night is considered nicer, and you're not. That's isser nicer. Forget it, eating it is kares, but leaving it over is a lav. I'm pretty sure eating nicer is a kares, but leaving it over is a lav. That's what we're talking about now. So therefore, and it says and if it is left over, then you should burn it. I think the end of the pasuk is, which is fair. Close. So the Bryce is saying this is called a lav hanitik laaseh. We have a lav, and we have the Torah gives in like a built-in way to fix the lav. So because that says, now even though it doesn't remedy the lav, in other words, the issue was, I don't know what you wrote. The issue was you don't remedy the lav because it was still left over. Okay. I don't know. 1 second. The issue is Lava Nitalase, yeah. Lava Nitalase. So again, you're not remedying the lav, but the Torah gives you a built-in. It's almost like a way to fix the lav, and you don't get makkos to that. Rabbi Kiva Amar Loimen Hashem who's Ela Mishum da Avalei Lav She'ein by Meiser. That's not the reason why you don't get makkos. It's because you don't get makkos and Lav She'ein by Meiser. Leaving over Meiser is just a lack of eating it. It's not a physical act of leaving it. The Chol Lav She'ein by Meiser. So that's Rabbi Kiva holds. How do we learn out that Lav She'ein b'maisa is like a lav? Amar Ula, on this Ula said, Gamar Matzah Shema. The Gemara says the same back and forth. Ma Matzah Shema Lav She'ein b'maisa. So right, so this is the limud. Amar Ula Gamar Matzah Shema. Ma Matzah Shema Lav She'ein b'maisa, because it's just a dibur. He just comes to say, a Pesach Basuach Matzasi. I found your daughter didn't have a sulam. Like in a love, Avkol Hashem b'maisa. Like in a love. Mala Matzah Shema. The Gemara says you can't bring a raya from Matzah Shema Shekain like a Mishalim, because it has a chumrah of like a Mishalim. So you learn out instead from Edim Zayman. Ma Edim Zayman Lav She'ein b'maisa. Like in a love, Avkol Hashem Avkol Hashem b'maisa. Like in a love. Mala Edim Zayman. The Gemara says there's a chumrah of Edim Zayman that you can't learn out to nicer, or to all blavim really. The Gemara is going to discuss later on in the Masechta that it's not shaykh to give Edim Zayim Hasra, and therefore they do not need Hasra. Matzah Shema Yichiach, so Matzah Shema is Yichiach that even though that they do need Hasra, or it's not shaykh to Hasra, and still it's like a Misham. So that's not the reason of that must be that. The fact that I don't need Eid Asra is not the reason why I am like a Mishalim. Why I'm like on Lav She'ein b'maisa. Because I did Levi Zekri Zel, Levi Zekri Zel, Hashosh B'hem, Lav She'ein b'maisa, like in a love, Af Kol, Lav She'ein b'maisa, like in a love. So the Gemara says, Ma La Tzal Hashosh B'hem Shekain Knas. Halei Kasha Rabbi Yehuda Holy Kasha. Who says there's not Holy Rabbi Kiva, so therefore Eidim Zayman is not Knas, and therefore you don't have this Tzad breaker of Knas. There's sometimes throughout Shas we use this idea, which is interesting, of each one, even though they don't have a common denominator, they don't have the same chaimer, but they have this Indian that they each have a chaimer. So you can't learn out to Stam Lavim, which doesn't have a chaimer. Yehuda does not get bothered from this tzad chaimer issue. We're going to do a couple more lines to get to the Mishnah. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda, we have a sheet of Rabbi Yehuda that says that fine. So why do we need it to say in such a strong lashon leisan if I'm not giving the guy Makkos? Why do I need such a strong lashon of leisan b'reacha eit shakar? My darish bei hahu mibayile lahazara edim zayman to you need a hazara for edim zayman. V'meir hazara edim zayman minale. Am Rav Yirmiyah nafkele mevahanasharim yashmiu v'yiru v'la yasifu aid. And this passage says that we're going to make a achraza after the edim zayman are taken out to be killed, and everyone else is going to hear and fear and not continue to do this horrible thing of being Eidin Zayman. I need to know that this pasuk tells me to be Makkos. They're going to hear and be afraid. Obviously, there's Hachraza. He learns it out from the fact that they're going to, for obviously, if they hear about it, there's a Hachraza. Okay, Shkaich everybody, and Be'ez Hashem tomorrow night we will continue from Hey Amid Aleph on the top. Every time.